Hello, guys, and welcome. I am here with two, what we can somewhat call celebrities now, but I want to go to some early days. By the way, my name is Carlos Alvarez, and I am here to share a beautiful story of two human beings that have collided and created some beautiful empires in a life that so many would love to model. Danielle, Garrett, welcome to my show. How are you guys doing today?
It's officially the Carlos show. I
Hey,
love it.
I've been waiting for my breakthrough, and I think I finally made it, guys.
Well, you said to me this morning, you're like, I have a vision. We're doing an interview. And I was like, okay, when are we doing this? And you're like, today. And I was like, okay.
There was no joke about it. I'm like, we're doing this and we're doing it today. Are you guys in or are you not?
All in.
I love
Beautiful.
it. We're ready.
So, guys, the purpose behind this, I want to take you back to the journeys of where we began. Like, let's go back.
How far back?
Oh, we're going way far back. Pre-Botox, pre-everything. Like, we're going back.
Man, you better buckle up,
Are
Buttercup.
you guys ready for this? Please keep your arms in at all times and please no flash photography. So, guys, Garrett, let me start with you.
Okay.
As a child, looking forward, what did you want to do when you grew up?
Play football.
You wanted to do football.
That was it. I didn't have any desire. I want to play American football, and I want to be a football coach, and I
You
want to
wanted to
marry
be
a cheerleader.
good. You wanted to be
Yeah, I wanted to be
good.
the best.
You wanted to
but I
go
was
pro.
Like, that was it. I want to play professional football. That didn't happen. Or I was going to be a coach. That was it. So like football was my life. I didn't know anything about money. Didn't have any conversation with money. Wasn't raised with money. Didn't know what entrepreneurism was, marketing, sales, teams, leadership, nothing. So I understood inside the football space, but that was it. And I didn't come from any family, had any money. There was no one on any side of my family who had done anything successful with money. Nobody made any of it, a lot of it. To be rich in our family was to make about $45,000 a year. You're rich if you had some TVs in the back of the minivan. Most of our families around, like, you just couldn't afford shit. We had powder milk, always. Never had real milk. Powder milk and cornbread is what we ate, and top ramen. And then we lived in trailers for half my time with life growing up. My dad made a little bit of money, a little bit more money. We got a house when I was in high school, but besides that, we were trailers and bounced from place to place about every 18
Funny
months.
story, when I first met his family and I go to his house and I like open the fridge, I'm like, babe, there's green milk in the fridge. I think it's gone bad. And he goes, oh no, it's powdered milk and it's St. Patty's Day, so my mom puts food coloring in it. And I was like,
I remember that.
So it was not green beer, it was green milk.
it was green milk, yeah. So I was like, this is so different than how I was raised, but.
Danielle came from a totally different background than I did.
I feel like I wasn't, looking back, I'm like, we were definitely looked at as like an upper middle class. And I always had like nice things and nice cars and nice homes. But in my family, we were always taught to work. Both of my parents, neither of them went to college. Both of them entrepreneurs. And they flat out said, like, Danielle, you're 16, like, go get a job. Like, that was just like required in my family. So it's so crazy because they wanted me to go to college, but more than anything, they instilled a really strong work ethic.
Beautiful. So let's go back to you now. What did you want to do when you grew up?
I wanted to be a mom and marry a rich guy.
Like, she had a focus from day one. She was like,
She came after cornbread guy.
at the age of 5, she was like, there's my vision.
But it's so funny. I was always a worker. Like, I worked from the time I was like 14, which is funny because then people would be like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I was like, I just want like 7 babies and like marry a rich hot guy. I don't know. Like, that was.
Wow. Like, she was on a mission. She knew where she was headed and she went there. She didn't do any of this number. Garrett, as a child, what was your biggest disappointment? That you can look back and you're like, oh, as a kid, I remember this. This was a huge disappointment for me.
So dude, like I said, like everything, my whole world revolved around football. That was it. So my biggest disappointment was like I tore my Achilles tendon, or tore my tendon, my thumb, my senior in high school, and I was preseason All-American and lost a lot of big scholarship opportunities I had, and ended up at Boise State University on scholarship, which was great. But I didn't play football my senior year. So that was like everything built all the way up to my senior in high school, and then I didn't get to play my senior year because I was injured, and I already had scholarship offers. So, and again, that's all I cared about. I was like, go to the NFL, make money, be a football coach. So that was it. So it's even today, like there's a piece of me. That's why I went back and played professional arena football for a number of years.
Because you felt like you kind of like lost that
I feel like I
opportunity?
never proved to myself because it was like serious momentum, and then that's it.
Well,
Outside that, I didn't
maybe
really have a
God
whole
had
lot
a
of regrets when I was a kid. That
different
was
plan
it.
for
Football
you.
was like the big one.
So what was it?
Oh, I said maybe God had a different plan for you. I mean, I don't know.
Well,
it's obvious.
Clearly.
Well, and
Here
it's
we
like-
are interviewing Garrett White, and we're going to be going into some of the different questions, but clearly there was definitely a different path.
Right. And it turns out that path worked out.
Did you ever see yourself as a wife to a football coach?
Only
if he made a lot of money.
No, like when I met Garrett, I mean, we're 7 years apart. I was 18 when I met him. He was 25, and I remember he was telling me, he's like, yeah, I'm going to be a football coach, but I like want to coach college ball. So I was like, cool, like those guys make good money, like I'm in. Like, but it wasn't even that. Like his personality, I was like, you could sell a used car. Like it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to be successful. And that's what I saw in him, is that drive. And for a woman, that's I think what is most attractive, is a guy that like wants to actually work and has that drive and that passion. So I was like, cool, you want to do that? You don't want to do that? Whatever you end up doing, I'm sure it'll be great. You know what I mean?
Beautiful.
So
beautiful. What was your biggest disappointment as a child, or something that you just go back a few years? Just like 10 years back now
like
as a
10
child.
years back. You know what? I feel like now that I'm an adult, even though I didn't go to college, I felt like I wish I would have applied myself a little bit more in school, because I believe in school you learn to learn, right? And I felt like I kind of just like scraped by. I didn't really do a whole lot, but I feel like later in life I'm kind of like making up for it, right? Like I didn't play sports. I was a lifeguard in high school, but I really didn't apply myself. And it wasn't until, it was a good thing I got married young, because I feel like where most people, life gets started in their 30s, like I got married at 20. Like I didn't have a choice. So I kind of like got life started early. So even though part of me is like, oh, I'm sad I didn't like apply myself more, I feel like I kind of made up for it in my 20s and 30s. And I mean, even now, like I feel like for the age I'm at and the neighborhood we live in and that kind of thing, like I'm fairly established and still pretty young for what I've accomplished. So I'm kind of like, I think, again, like I feel like everything kind of happens how it's supposed to happen. You know what I mean?
Beautiful. This is where I love to go down memory lane. Tell me about when these two worlds collided. How did you guys meet? Tell me about your first date.
Man, young.
Do you remember what you guys had to eat, where you went?
Yeah.
Like, Garrett, it sounds
Dude,
like
this guy didn't even take me out for dinner. He didn't even want to commit. He's like, can you go for ice cream?
Okay, so first of all, let's backtrack. How did you guys meet?
Oh God.
We were at a church conference.
We were at a church conference with like thousands of people. It's
Like
not even
12,
like
13,000
yeah,
kids.
Wow.
It was like crazy, and he was like yelling at my roommates on our way out to our car, and I literally was like, "You guys, there's a creeper! Like, get in the car, get in the car!" But I didn't see his face. I just heard like a guy like, "Hey, cute girls!" Like totally like.
Oh, like literally just like, "Hey, cute girl?"
Yeah, literally
Beautiful.
like beautiful girls. There's like 5 of us, cute, 18-year-olds.
No,
like,
what I exactly said. There were 5 of you walking out, and we're in the parking lot. I'm with my crew. There were their crew. There's lots of crews checking each other out. And I said, oh, you don't see that many beautiful girls all in one pack together often.
Well, we were all
looking
really
nice,
cute.
ladies. Something lame as hell. But they
Yeah.
were all 18.
Something
so it
very
worked out.
Garrett style.
Yeah.
Something very
Well,
good.
what's-
I had bleached out
yeah.
blonde hair
Who's
that was
that
spiked
cook?
like
Who's
this.
that cook with the travels that has
Guy Fieri?
Yes, I had Guy
that was
Fieri
his
hair.
I shit you not. I was
I
like,
had Guy Fieri hair.
all I saw was your hair. I didn't even see him until like later. One
Like
of my
you're in
roommates.
sync days with the frosted tips.
Exactly.
Totally. And
Nice.
when
Going
he used
through
to
the
go
cap.
tanning, but he doesn't tan because he's Irish, so he had like white blonde hair and a bright red face. And I was like, but
All
then
right.
you know what?
Yeah, I must have been hot because you were all about that Guy Fieri
She must have
tomato.
been into Chucky looks, because
Because-
apparently.
no, I just remembered I've like shared this on some of our podcasts, Date Your Wife, but like I feel like the most attractive thing to a woman is how a man carries himself, right?
Absolutely.
So he came to my apartment later because he met one of my roommates and he thought he was coming over to check her out, but she wasn't home, so joke's on him. So he comes over and he was just like, hey, and like for the first time I noticed him for who he was, not like noticed like a guy in the crowd or whatever it was. Like he was like super chill and very like confident and like held himself with so much certainty. And like literally was like, well, I'd like to get your number, like very forward and direct, which I was like, okay, I like this. So I think it's just like how he carried himself. And I thought he was cute, but he was just like, he's a big personality, right? And I'm a little bit more shy and more introverted.
So how was Danielle back then? Like,
Oh,
I know the
she
story, but I
was
want for you to share
quiet.
this.
I was
Like,
quiet, but
She was
why?
very quiet.
What did you?
She was very much talkative with me, but like
Yeah.
in public settings until honestly probably the last 4 years, Danielle's been quiet. There's
Yeah.
people that didn't even know up until like 4 years ago
But
that
in
Danielle.
Just because I've
small
also seen a
setting.
change
Yeah.
in
her,
her,
right?
Yeah.
Like massive,
In her
just in the last
demeanor,
like 2
right.
years or so. right? Like massive amount of certainty and confidence to come about. I see an explosion with the birth of Isla, your fitness competitions, the podcast, and then me stepping out of BMS in 2019. And you guys in the crew taking over. All those 4 things happened at once. She took over full time again as owner of the companies. I stepped out. She was pregnant, had Isla, did the fitness shows, and launched the podcast. Like all these things happened at once within about the same 12-month time period.
But it was kind of like a burst. Like, so when I first launched my brand, like we had nothing. Like, I don't know if I've shared this story with you, but like I launched my brand Natural Beauty Rose because like we were emotionally, physically, everything just like bankrupt. Like I had nothing. So I had no choice but to be like, hey, you're super quiet and introverted. Like, guess what? You got 2 kids. Like, you don't have a choice. And that's when I started on YouTube and I started just like promoting and pitching and all this, and it kind of grew. And then I kind of like took my foot off the gas for a little bit because I was just exhausted.
Right.
And our relationship started to improve and our financial situation started to improve. And that's kind of when Garrett came in, right? And you met us when Garrett was a little bit more involved. And it's not that I wasn't involved, but we were kind of building the MBR brand together, right?
It's almost like he was the one bringing in the business savvy aspect of
yeah, I'm very much like
hair,
the artist.
and you were the artist.
Yeah, and I felt like I that was kind of a piece that I was missing. I was so passionate about the art that I needed a little bit of structure, you know. So he came in for like 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And I would do kind of the artsy portion of it and just pour my little soul out, and he would kind of come in and close it down and do more of like what at the time we called it Big Money Stylist or BMS, which is now turned into Business Marketing and Sales. So he kind of came in and revamped that. But then it was he kind of had to make an exit and focus on Warrior. And then I almost felt like honestly in the last like 2 years, it was like I was back to this place where I'm like, I'm not gonna let my baby burn to the ground, right? And I had to become a different human being, kind of like how I did when I started my brand, right? So it's like I had 2 growth pockets that happened, and now I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I feel like this is very much me, but it's now I'm not like, it was like me that only a small group of people could see, and now I feel like I get to share it with everybody, and it doesn't seem so scary.
Beautiful. If there's one thing about Danielle is that she can fuck up my interview real quick because my questions now went out of array.
You know me.
I was going in a sequence and this woman took it back to like
squirrel.
back over there. I know, so I'm going to reel it back a little bit. But a beautiful share. Thank you for sharing. 2 clap boom. Thank you for the share. So I had taken you guys like childhood, blah, blah, blah. You guys met.
Yeah.
I still want to know about that freaking first date. What did it look like?
I was laying on a grassy knoll.
I don't remember. I just remember he took me to get ice cream.
And I was like, man, I don't know if I can be committed to this girl for long or like what that looks like. I'm gonna see if she wants to go to ice cream. That was it. So I called her up and I didn't know. She thought it was like, what the hell's wrong with you, ice cream? But then went from ice cream. But then but what they didn't say. What people don't know about this story.
What I thought was weird, no, this is what I thought was weird. He takes me to ice cream. It's like 7:30 at night and he drops me off. I'm like, did you fucking drop me off? It's 7:30. I think you had another date. So our first date.
So the truth comes out.
Yeah. I just remember you dropping me off early, which then I was kind of like, now I like him even more.
I did drop you off at 7:30.
He just took me for ice cream and then was like, I'm like, does he like me? Like.
Nice.
No, but then you found out why I dropped you off because you remember what I picked you up in?
No, I think you had a second date, or did you have to?
No, I picked you up in a blazer that wasn't mine of a girl
and
who
you had
liked
to return
me.
it?
I remember that story now.
And I had to get the blazer back to her.
Evolve that story. So you were borrowing another
girl
girl's
who likes me.
blazer.
Yeah.
I asked her to borrow the blazer to take her out.
To take Danielle out.
So.
Yee.
2 ice cream.
Yeah.
So that's why she got dropped off at 7:30. Huh. So that was date number 1, and then we did not kiss. We didn't get sexual, nothing for months and months and months. So which was super weird for me.
We
didn't.
Did you
I don't
take
remember
me to
either.
dinner or something?
Jacinto's.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was like this, you could eat for $7 and go to a 50-cent movie.
Nice.
We had no money. We had nothing. Like I had come out of my divorce, and I was still in school. I was finishing up my degree.
I would spend all my money on
working.
shopping, and then my mom would be like, "I'm not giving you any more money." So I'd call this guy to like buy me dinner because I was like, "Man."
Golly.
I was like, "This
calling
bowl of
the struggling
cereal."
man over here while the woman's crying.
I was like, "I only had a bowl of Fruit Loops today. Do you want to take me to dinner?"
Oh my goodness.
See, we were lucky we grew up in a place that wasn't Orange County because if we were in a place in Orange County, she'd have just at that point been knocking on the door of 35-year-olds versus me, who she was totally cool with ice cream and.
I don't know. Not at 20, I wouldn't be knocking on
Jacinto's.
35-year-olds.
I don't know.
I
It's
don't
a,
know.
it's a common thing here in Orange County.
So then, what was that pivotal point from you guys dating to popping the question? Like, when do you know that this is my... No, hold on, ma'am. Sir, when was that pivotal point where you were like, I am giving her a ring?
Well, here's the deal.
Well-
I was so intimidated by her because how beautiful she was. Like I was just like
He kept
I
pushing
was
me
so,
away.
But I was so intimidated and felt so not worthy to be with her that I would find a reason to be emotionally unstable and then break up with her. Then she would go hook up with somebody else, which then would fire me up, and then I would get pissed, and then we'd get back together. And this happened like 9 times.
So we had 9 breakups.
9 breakups.
Within 2 years, though.
Within 2 years. And
And
that's
each-
still a lot.
And each time,
Yeah. Literally.
I would get like a message from one of my friends to be like, "Hey, bro, I don't know how to tell you this, but
'Cause his
I
friends
was
hung out
with
with my
so and so,
friends.
Got it.
and we were hanging out, and then I saw Danielle with this guy, other guy named. And I was like, dude, this girl hooks up with somebody new every time we
You
break up.
would tell, he wouldn't tell me though. He'd be like, I think you need to date other guys. Like, I'm older than
So you were giving her the permission
So I
and
was
then
like-
getting upset
Yeah,
about
and I
it.
was like, I am,
Yes.
what is going on?
I was like, oh, how dare you?
How would you? Go date other people. Then she does, and then he's over here getting upset
I know,
about it.
right?
So then we
It's
decided
insane.
we've been together about 18 months. When 18 months,
Well,
to 20 months.
you know what it was? Like there
decided-
was one date, like we were just really vibing, and we'd always kind of talked about getting married and that kind of thing, but like then we'd break up and get back together. And then there was one time we got back together, and he's like, "Let's go look at rings," and I was like. So we went and looked at rings, and really all I ever wanted from Garrett was like a commitment. I'm like, you keep pushing me away.
Like a little promise ring, or you wanted the
like,
actual ring?
I wanted a ring. I didn't care if we got married right away, to be honest with you. Like I was young, and I was like, I don't know if I want to get married, but I wanted the commitment from him.
Got it.
And because he kept pushing me away, and for women, like we want to feel like that trust. And if you keep telling me to like go date other guys, and then you're mad at me when I do, it's not really creating any kind of trust. Although I felt like we always kind of like connected to each other. So finally, he's like, well, let's go look at rings. I'm like, finally, maybe if I get a ring, like he'll finally stop trying to push me away. And literally, I remember we broke up. We went and looked at rings like the next day, and then he proposed, I swear, like a week later. Like it was crazy. Like from breakup to like engaged within like a week. And people were like, weren't you dating another guy last week?
Wow. So even people were just confused. I was like, okay, who's
Yeah.
with who and
Yeah.
what? Now you're married?
Yeah.
Beautiful. When did you get married? Date?
August 22nd,
Year?
2000 and
This is a funny story. Do you want to? Neither of us know when we got married.
2002.
Okay, so why? Now share this one. We gotta know why neither one of you know.
So
Were the drugs that good? I mean, what the heck were we doing then?
we got married one day, and then we had a reception one day. Like it felt like a big
Week.
Greek wedding. Like we literally like
many people,
we
so
were
long.
raised Mormon, so it's like a big thing, right?
So
was
is it like in different days kind of thing? Like a whole
Yeah,
week?
we did.
Her
no,
mom
we got-
wanted to do it that way.
We got
so
married
did.
one day, and then we had the reception one day. And every year, I'm always like, babe, which day is our anniversary? We always get them mixed up, and I'm like, is it the 21st or the 22nd? But it's the 21st.
So when you guys signed the paper,
Is it?
I don't know.
Listen, neither one
was
of
it
us
the
know.
paper signing or the actual blessing day?
The actual both.
I
We
think
did
it's-
both.
I think
on the
both
same
of us
day.
happened on
Yeah.
one day, and then the next day was like the party and the reception. But we did
I
to
think
this
it's the
day.
22nd.
It's
I have to
become a
text his
weird thing that
mom
we
every
like.
year,
I think it's a
'cause-
dependency thing on our moms because our first year we were married. I remember we were driving. And we get like a text message. It's like, happy anniversary. And I look at Danielle. I was like,
And I was like, oh, we
it our-
celebrated that yesterday.
is that our anniversary today? And
Because
then-
his mom's anniversary is like a day before ours or a day after. I don't remember.
My
So
mom
every
remembers
year,
all this shit.
So every year she texts us and is like, happy anniversary. And I'm like, I hope we don't miss it this year.
Oh my God,
But
that's
I expect
awesome.
presents. I mean, I expect presents around that
So do you
time.
expect 2 presents?
Well,
she expects lots of presents.
Is that your language of love?
yeah, but I also, I have lots of languages. I want them all. Like, I want connection. I want physical touch. I want gifts. I want words of affirmation.
She's like,
You heard of 5 languages?
Yeah,
I have
has
7,
all-
and
she has all
all
10.
of them.
I want 10 of those languages, okay?
has 10 of those.
I don't think of myself as like needy, but I do like all of the things of love languages.
beautiful. Then we get married. Guys are married.
Yeah.
Honeymoon. Were
honeymoon
there
was
some
rough.
nerves? Were there some
was
like...
rough.
We
We
went
didn't have
to
sex
St.
before we got
Thomas. Yeah, it was like our honeymoon. It was just awkward.
Oh, so repeat
was
that. You
awkward.
guys
We had
were not
had sex-
intimate?
We didn't have.
No.
We
Until you were
We
married.
had sexual experiences with each other, but we hadn't had like penetrating sex. So sex like hadn't happened. That's typical Mormon style. So we had our moment, but there was never like sex. So then we get married, and it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird.
Well, we went to this all-inclusive resort.
You actually shared this on the
rained-
podcast, though.
It rained the whole time.
Share what you shared about the
I don't
podcast.
remember
How
what
it was
I
such a
shared.
disappointment.
No, it wasn't disappointment. I was just like,
So Garrett didn't perform well.
Exactly.
no,
Let's just call it out.
It wasn't that. It was just like I didn't realize like you gotta like find your groove with somebody, and I didn't know because we had such good chemistry. And then
Were
I was
you
like,
playing some Barry Manilow, trying to be like
No,
extra
I had
about
no
it, or
moves.
like
I
not
had
even
no
that?
moves.
had
I
no
don't
moves.
know. I just
My moves were bad. I come out of first marriage, moves were bad.
But now we
had
have
moves, but we didn't have
Now-
moves. I didn't
yeah.
have moves then.
I feel
so
like
our
we
honeymoon was a weird
regressed a
time.
little bit. Like we had such good chemistry, and then
Yeah.
we like kind of regressed a little bit,
For a few
and then we
years.
like had to like build it back up.
So you guys had to learn how to dance together.
Totally.
You
Yes.
guys need to learn your two-step and your.
I think we would have figured it out eventually dating, but we figured it out married instead. So
That's beautiful. Do you guys have any regrets about, for example, not being intimate before marriage, or do you think there's a sanctity?
I don't know if
behind
I would have. I don't know if I would have married you. I'd been like, oh, that's fine. Like there was in the Mormon
it?
culture.
Was that bad?
No. In the Mormon culture, like no.
This is true.
The
I mean,
truth came
I can't
out,
hide from
dude.
this. Nowadays,
No,
I got
you're-
some game.
I,
And I
you're
got
making
no
me blush,
game
but
back
that's
then.
not what I was gonna say. What I was gonna say, like in the
If I found out that he was that bad, I definitely wouldn't have got married.
in religious
Beautiful.
culture, I think that if we had had sex before
It'd be
we
too
got
much
married,
guilt.
it would be so much guilt that I'd been like it would have reminded me of that guilt, and I would have been like, I can't be married to you. Shame
probably
on
wouldn't
you.
have got
Like
married.
it wouldn't have. I don't think we would have gotten
Because
married.
of the way you were raised.
The
You
way
were
I
both
was
raised
raised in the
Mormon.
guilt. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I'm.
That's probably true. I mean, I have a feeling there'd been a lot more. There'd been a tremendous amount of guilt. We were both raised with a lot of guilt, so it would have pushed us. It would have pushed away. A lot of that guilt affected our sex life and even just our willingness to be intimate with each other. Even for the first like 4 or 5 years being married, 6 years, 7. I mean, it was rough. It was rough. I don't think we found our real rhythm. We didn't understand like how to connect that way, which was so crazy to us because we both so mentally were so connected and emotionally and spiritually were so connected. We could spend like hours driving, talking. And that was the piece that always bonded us was as attractive as she was, there was always there was a
We
piece
could sit
about
and
her
talk
that
for
was
hours.
so much
Like we would go to
more
dinner
attractive
and like
to me.
we just always could talk and communicate. Like our communication was always really good. So when in our relationship, when the sex wasn't great and the communication left, and then we had no money, like there was like I was like,
Like, what do we have?
yeah, what do we have? We have 2 kids, and that's when it was the rocky years.
So, honeymoon, we're past it. We know that Garrett was a pretty shitty performer that night. Danielle wouldn't have married him had she known. So, fast forward all of that. So, here we are, we're married. You guys don't have kids until how many years after your
I was
marriage?
24, so 4 years.
So, you guys still waited, romance, you kind of dated now your wife at that point because you really
Well,
did
I
it.
was young, so I wasn't like in a super big hurry, and I still even feel like I had kids young, like 24. I was still like pretty young.
Right.
But
So,
I
go
was
ahead.
in moneymaker mode. So the minute we got engaged, I like felt the burden of responsibility. Football, I was playing professional arena football at the time. That ended up, and I was like, I'm done with this. And I found money. So when I was meeting her, when I first met her, I was going to be PE teacher, football coach, and then
How old
midway
were
through
you at that point?
So let's see, I was 25 when I met her.
you were always
She was
obsessed with
18.
work, though. Like you were
But I
always
became
working.
obsessed with. But I always
But-
worked. But I had never been obsessed with the idea
You were
of
obsessed with
becoming
me
wealthy.
and work, though. Like
Yeah.
you would work till like 10 o'clock, and then we would hang out and like talk from like 10 to 2 in the morning. Like we didn't care. We were young. You know what I
Right.
mean?
You could still handle it
Yeah,
back
we
then.
could. But like
you can
but
still bounce.
By the
Yeah.
time we were like even early married, I was like, well, you know, I remember being like, I wanted to like stay up. It was like midnight, and you'd be like all pissed. And you're like, well, I'm going to bed. I have to work. And I'm like, what happened to like 2 a.m., Garrett? Like, come on, like.
Yeah, I was stressed. I was running like I just became obsessed with the money game, and for the next like the first 5, 6 years, 7 years we were married, money was my mistress. Business was my mistress.
I think it's because you didn't know
I
how
was
to.
obsessed.
You
I
didn't know how to
do it.
operate with me anymore.
Well, I don't know how to operate with you, and I also was terrified that I wasn't going to be able to provide. And she'd come from a more prosperous life than I did, and so there was a lot of pressure I had put on myself to like have to show up and create a lifestyle, but I didn't know how that. So I had no examples, no mentors, no nothing. So I had to go hunt all those down. So I became obsessed with it, and the pressure of it built, and I wasn't like emotionally stable enough to be able to deal with it. So I was learning. There was no role model of like how to do it. So I just kept fucking it up and figuring it out and fucking it up and figuring it out. So we moved to Vegas. Man, we were having mortgage
I
companies
feel like
going. and-
even in our first years of marriage, you kind of pushed me away because you didn't know how to operate around me, and you're so used to being able to have that control and know how to succeed in life. And I was
Yeah.
the one area in life that you couldn't control, and you didn't know how to win.
Yep.
So you would bury yourself in work
Yeah.
because you didn't know how to win, which in the long run we both would kind of drift apart, right? I think that relationships is about submission on both ends, right? Like you can't control that person, right? But you can grow together beautifully and create something massive.
So the ruling house at this point wasn't the mistress, which was your
Business
work,
and money.
your
Yeah.
business,
I just
the
worked.
money.
I worked like 16-hour days. I just worked. And if I was at home, I was working. We just worked. If it was the weekends, I just worked. I was either reading books
But I
and
was
studying,
super
or I was
independent.
working.
Like I would always I worked too, and I'd come home, and I remember we lived in Vegas when we were first married, and like I'd come home, I don't ever remember sitting down and having dinner
I
with you.
don't remember
like
ever
we'd go,
sitting down and
we'd
having
go
dinner
and
once.
maybe like have date nights once or twice a week, you know, like go out to Cheesecake Factory or whatever was in Vegas.
And your eldest was how old at this point?
No, this is
No,
when we
this
had
was
kids.
first
This
married.
is when we were
Kids.
first
Okay,
married.
I'm
But I
following.
was like super
We had my son,
independent.
but my
I
son
didn't
was
care.
not my world at that time. He's living with his
But-
mom in Canada.
Yeah, but I
Right.
think I'm like, how did it's kind of funny because I'm like, no wonder we kind of grew apart. We start like putting in the time, and then it was like he was working all the time, and then I was like, hey, it's time to have kids, and then we had a couple kids, and then it was like a decade went by, and I was like, wow, like what happened? Do you know what I mean? But it's like we kind of like settled into like, hey, you work, you have kids, you do this. Like we didn't know, right? But I mean, obviously it's all kind of turned around and worked out, but.
How I just look back to the way I operated. I'm like, how did I even think that was going to work? But I was
Neither of us
already
knew.
living above the standard of anyone I knew. So I didn't realize that I was fucking things up. I just kind of thought this is how it is. Oh, I guess this is how marriage is. This is how it's supposed to be.
This is what we know, this is how it
Yeah.
is, and I guess this is life moving
Yeah.
forward. So at what point did you guys, between getting married and having your firstborn, what were your days like? Like, what was the biggest regret perhaps for those right before you had kids?
I didn't
I was
really have
making-
a lot of
I was making-
regrets.
I do.
Like I don't really.
Yeah, we were making money, and I didn't take you places. We didn't do things.
That's
We
true.
didn't
But
hang
you know
out.
what? Like
we didn't do shit. I just worked.
So you guys were growing, but you weren't living.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're not even growing. I think we were just hanging out. Like
Well, because he's talking about there was starting to be money.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there was money.
that's
We
true.
bought our first house in Vegas. It was a great house. It was super fun. I mean, I think back,
yeah, I'm
we
like-
did not spend time together,
well,
and I
it's
did
funny
not invest
now
in
that
her.
now that we have kids, I'm like, why didn't we just have sex all over the house, like
I
all
know.
the time?
How
Like-
the fuck were we
Now
not
you're
fucking
thinking about
everywhere?
it.
right
Like-
now, I'm like, oh my god, we had so much freedom, but we didn't even know.
We
And then
didn't
you
know
have
we
kids,
had
and you're
freedom.
like, okay, like now if we can sneak downstairs and watch a movie, we're
Well,
like,
you were
"This is
still
so
trying to
great."
teach him how to perform, I bet you now. Now that's gonna be a thing now.
I was still learning. It took
You
her
were still
15
learning.
Took her 13 years of teaching to get me there.
Babe, you've always been good. Just
That's a good comeback,
Yeah.
Danielle. That's a
Yeah.
good comeback. That's a great comeback. I mean, coming from the woman said, I probably wouldn't have married you, but
it always turns this direction. I'm always like,
are those cameras, I mean, those lights
It's
getting
like
a little too warm?
steaming
No,
here.
I love steam. Anyways, let's fast forward a little bit more. Now you guys are starting to build your life. You have your first kid. Let's go past another 5-10 years now.
Okay.
Where do you guys find yourselves at this point? Because I hear that there was a rise, there was a plateau, and there was a collapse. What happened?
So we were in the banking world, and Danielle was doing hair, and we'd moved back. I'd been traveling a ton, speaking at events, and Danielle was tired of me being working and gone so much, and she was pregnant with our first. Said, if I'm gonna have this baby, I want to live by my family. So we moved
no,
back
no,
to
I
Utah.
got pregnant in Utah.
No.
Oh, that's true. I got pregnant in Vegas. I miscarried. And then I was like, I really want to start a family, but I want to be closer to
Yep.
my family.
So we moved to Utah, and I sold my mortgage company in Vegas, bought a couple of mortgage companies, collapsed all the ownership, and I started running these companies, and we were making money, and I was traveling, I was speaking on massive stages, and I was traveling and doing my thing, and I was always gone.
Trying to build. It's funny, you were doing the whole mortgage thing, but you were always more trying to build like your speaking career, I felt like.
Yeah, I was more interested in like impact than I wasn't, like I wanted to impact people, but I didn't really know how to do that, so I was in banking.
I have a theory on this too. Like, I feel like because our relationship was a little bit hollow, like you got more fulfillment standing on stage and feeling that from other people,
energy?
the
100%.
energy from other people.
100%.
Which I was like, I don't know, like how to give you that if you won't like let me in your world. So I feel like you were kind of like being fulfilled by these crowds and speaking.
Yep. And like the attention and the teams and 100 employees and just everything else that was running, like there was just more energy coming from that space. Then 2007 turns into 2008, and right through that time frame, the mortgage game starts shifting,
Right.
and we were super young and aggressive. I was like, we had a couple partners, and walked in one day, and they said, "You gotta let everybody go. We got no money." and the bank stopped paying commissions, and our deal started falling apart, and everything fell apart. And I had not been good at saving money, and every bit of money I had, I tried to pour into the business to save it, which was stupid. And so we ended up living on credit, and Danielle didn't know for like 6 months. And
I knew, but I just kept thinking, I thought what everybody thought at that time, like it's gonna turn around, it's gonna turn around. So we kept our expenses the same and started, we're spending so much money, like out of our means probably, and because we were making a ridiculous amount of money, like just thinking it's gonna, and then it like tapped out and we're like, well, we can't slow down this lifestyle, right? So I knew.
You tasted the lifestyle, you couldn't go back.
I knew, and I was getting like sick in my stomach because I'd get the Amex bill and I'm like, babe, like normally it'd be like 20 grand every month and we pay it off, and I'm like, babe, it's at 120 grand. Like, when are we, like, it was like I was on a ship that I knew was sinking, but I didn't know how to confront him, or I didn't want him to be like, what are you doing? Because he'd get irritated and be like, I'm doing the best I can, I'm providing. And I was like, okay, like I didn't know how to approach that conversation. So I was on this ship that I knew was sinking, but I was just kind of more passive and just like, he'll figure it out, he'll figure it out, he'll figure it out, till I was like, we are short selling our home. We have tapped out 4 major credit cards. Nobody else will give us a credit card. We stopped paying our rent. We short sold our house, stopped paying our rent. Like, I kid you not, like I tell people this and they think I'm like joking around, because at the time I was driving a Range Rover and had a 6,000 square foot home. I'm like, we weren't paying rent on any of our cars or our home, and any money that I made was literally just to buy groceries and food for my kids.
So you guys at this point are just now
We're just
surviving. Barely surviving. How did that make you feel as a man and as a provider, and you're feeling all of this shit happening?
Yeah, horrible. Yeah, horrible. So I end up for the next 4 years essentially becoming a right-hand wingman to other business owners and or an employee of one of my friend's companies. So 2008, I partnered with a friend of mine named Garrett J, who wrote Killing Sacred Cows. He was in financial services. I knew him. We were partners, strategic partners between my banking firms and his. He was barely hanging on by a thread, and he said, why don't you come on? Can't pay you about a salary, but come on and let's see if we can turn this thing around. And so, like, God was leading me down a path to learn business from another angle, to learn all the things that I had fucked up on.
I felt like, too, like, you made money when money was easy to make. Like, everybody in the banking world was just like...
Everybody was buying houses.
Everybody was buying houses, and everybody's living these lifestyles. But if you didn't know... And, like, even, like, this last year, I told Garrett with, like, everything that happened in 2020, I'm like... The people that didn't make it, it's a direct reflection of what you knew in business and what you didn't. As hard as that sounds, like, we learned the hard way. So
you know what? That's one of the things, not to sound like a big asshole about it, but I feel like through 2020, those that survived were the ones that actually had a plan and a strategy for anything that was coming to. What was going through your mind as you're literally seeing your husband aggravated, angry, going through all these different feelings?
I was like,
let me finish my question, ma'am, please.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Super excited.
She's like, I think I know where he's going. You're seeing your husband like flooding. He's sinking, he's dying. What's the feeling? What's the first feeling as you're seeing that poor man, probably, devastated as a man, as a provider?
If I'm being kind of harsh and honest, I'm like,
please be honest.
I'm not attracted to him at all. Like, literally, I'm like, pull your fucking head out of the sand and let's do this. But again, I didn't play any kind of role in like communicating or doing anything else. I just kind of like sat back and like watched it, right? And it was kind of, we refer to it like as like the dark years, like honestly. And I got pregnant with my second daughter, Ruby, because I was like, I love babies. And I was like, well, it had been 4 years and it was kind of like, okay, like it's time to have another baby. And I was like, that'll fix my problem, right? I'm like,
so that was going to be your salvation.
That was
right there.
Yeah. It's like, if I have another baby, that'll fix what's really going on. And it didn't. Like, I mean, I love, like, it brought so much joy to my life. And I tell Garrett all the time, I'm like, if we had not had Ruby, I don't know if we would actually be together. I think she was like a little bit of the glue that like kept us
She was
together.
a little bit of that blessing that
for sure.
that had to come out of this. Whew, let's get out of these dark years, right?
Yeah, it was rough.
Shit's happening. We lost the business. You're looking at your husband like, man, rise or I'm out kind of thing at that point, right? I know that there were a little couple things that happened during that period, but as things start to get better, Garrett, you're like, okay, you're walking around like dead man walking, There was a pivotal point in your life that you said, it's either this or that. Tell us a little bit about that. What was that pivotal point in your life where you're like, I either provide or I got to tap out?
I mean, I like things got real dark. I mean, I cheated, and that was when Danielle was pregnant with Ruby, and Danielle just got more disgusted with me. I got disgusted with myself, and I was on like this
It
really
wasn't even
intense
like I was
journey.
disgusted. I like shared this on a podcast. Like when people were like, when he told you cheated, like, what did you do? I was literally 9 months pregnant, and I knew I was so hollow in my relationship when I was just like, I don't care. Like I was kind of in shock, but I was like, I don't care. Like it wasn't like, how dare you? It was just like, ew. Like, what do I do from here? You know what I mean? And I was in a very vulnerable place because I was 9 months pregnant, and I'm like, okay. Right? And like I said, I believe that we continue to work on our relationship because now I'm here 9 months pregnant. I'm like, I got a baby. Like, we got to see if we can make this work.
Well, that piece all like triggered like the growth. I think that Danielle and I played an interesting role with each other in business because we knew we needed a change, and there was a chance in 2011 for us to make a big change. We just needed to change. In 2009 and 10, we left the religion that we were raised in. The affair happened. The baby was born. I started figuring a couple things out in marketing and sales online. Danielle was actually doing pretty good with hair the whole time and had never really been telling me how good she was doing. And if she did, I didn't really believe her because, like most people, that look at hairstylists, they think that hairstylists are just a joke, and they are non-essential. And that was proven in 2020 with, hey, why don't we just throw hairstylists in the non-essential list? That's how I felt too. I was like, fucking hairstylist, what kind of money you make? Give me a break, right? But I didn't have, it wasn't like I was negative in supporting you, it just wasn't supportive at all.
Right.
I was like, yeah, you can do it, but I didn't know. So as we moved to Arizona from Utah, and this was a chance for us to get away from everyone, our families, everyone we knew, and it was the first time both of us were kind of like, okay, I don't know if we're gonna stay together, but we for sure can at least fight back to back to dig our way out of this fucking place.
Well, and we removed ourselves from our community and our family so that there was no outside noise. It was like, if we're gonna do this, let's clear the noise and it's just you and I and our family, right? And I really think that moving to Arizona at that time, and even though we lost our home and everything, we wouldn't have moved to Arizona if that didn't happen, right? We wouldn't have cleared the noise. We wouldn't have made the changes that were necessary in order for us to get to the level in which we're at. So everything has this weird kind of curvy path in which it plays a huge role of who you become. And I feel like we just kept throwing a curveball, and we just kind of kept just kind of kept going with it, you know?
Like one of those, what are they called? Like
I'm
a little.
thinking of a game, yeah. We're like, bing,
Ding,
bing.
ding,
You're like,
ding.
you're,
What
we're
is it?
kind of-
Pinball.
Yeah,
Thank
like
you. I'm
we're
like, I
staying in
couldn't
the
think of the name,
lanes.
but I was seeing the thing.
Yeah.
As a woman, other women, whether you want to call them feminists, whatever you want to call them, why would you forgive that man knowing that he is cheating you? He cheated on you, 9 months pregnant. At this point, many people would have been like, fuck you, get out, you piece of shit. How can you cheat on your wife at 9 months?
Right.
Tough question.
Well, and I've actually shared this before. I was in a very vulnerable spot. Like I wasn't working. I was working when I was pregnant, and I was doing fairly well. But I don't even think I believed in myself. Even though I was probably making like 10 grand a month, that's pretty good for
That's
a
great money,
hairstylist in
absolutely.
Utah. And I just don't think it was a lack of belief in myself, and you kind of like what our industry and the stigma that we carry with being a hairstylist, but just having kids and being so vulnerable, like being like, I hear a lot of moms that like, or I see a lot of moms that like are in unhappy, unhealthy relationships, but stay married for the kids. And I felt that. I was like, I have to stay in this to give my family a fighting chance, right? And it wasn't like it was always crappy. Like things started to get better. So like I kind of was in a very vulnerable place where I was like, okay, well I played a role in this. And I think that every time something like this happens, like both, it's like somebody doesn't just cheat to cheat. Like everybody plays a role in the relationship. And so even as hard as it was, I was like, well, I have to take accountability for how I showed up. I knew things weren't great. I thought a baby would be the fix. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I remember thinking very clearly, like, Danielle, like, you're going to have issues with no matter who you marry and whoever you're with, and you have kids together, so why don't you give your relationship a fighting chance? Which means, like, actually work on it and stop pretending like everything's okay. So that I knew I wouldn't have been able to just been like, fuck you, and like been divorced if I didn't at least give it a chance. If I gave it a chance and it was still like, and we gave it a fighting chance. Like we were still talking about divorce like
2016.
Yeah, like 2016. It wasn't until finally like in the last like 5 years that we finally like turned a corner, you know, and it, like divorce was kind of off the table, but we fought for each other in our relationship for a solid 7 years. And most people don't like, but there was enough light at the end of the tunnel that I was like, there was enough happy moments. There was enough spark where I could see it like, there was enough connection still there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Do you
But
consider yourself stubborn?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you, Danielle,
I
consider
think
yourself stubborn?
I think I'm stubborn.
It's just a yes or no question.
I think you're controlling and I'm stubborn.
I think
Successful men are controlling, and I think that they have to let go of that control to kind of get what they want.
Do you feel like he controls and dominates in his business?
Yeah, and like I said,
Do you feel like he controls and dominates at home?
No, he's pretty sweet. He's
pretty sweet.
He's pretty sweet. I like him.
Beautiful. So we go through all of this gloom, doom. We're starting to rise. Things are starting to get better. You see the horizon. The picture looks absolutely beautiful. You moved to California. You left all that shit behind. What starts happening here in California that you guys see so differently? Where was that growth? What started? What sparked this?
So I'm taking off with Wake Up Warrior at the time. So I feel inspired in 2012 we had started kind of turning things around for us, and it was recognizably different in a short period of time. People even recognized in my world and Danielle's world, like, what's going on with you guys? You were dark. Like, you guys, not only, you would fight anytime we were in public with people, we were fighting. Anytime we
So
were
it was
around other
apparent
people,
to everyone that you guys were not in a happy place.
everybody knew we were not in a good place. So all of a sudden we were, and we were going on date nights, and we're posting pictures about it, and it's genuine, and we're like enjoying each other again and having a good time. Like, fuck you doing? And I had started creating these games in my journal to try to figure out I couldn't figure out how to be her husband. I couldn't figure out how to be a dad, and I couldn't figure out how to be a businessman. I couldn't figure out how to do all this at the same time. I just didn't know how. I was like, if I double down and go make money, I can do that, but then I don't know how to deal with all this guilt for my kids. I don't know how to deal with this guilt and lack of this rejection I constantly feel in my marriage. Like, I don't know how to fucking do all this.
You know how to do the work piece, but you...
Yeah, I didn't know how to do anything else. I knew how to work out and how to work. That was it. Which is why most guys spend most of the time working out. So at that transition period, I also start recognizing in business that like the fastest path to being successful in business was to control the rain. If I could make it rain, then I could control the game. And I had this awareness one day. I'm sitting in this event. I watched this guy, and I'm like, if I can become a master of marketer, there's nothing I can't do in business. What killed my banking businesses? Lack of lead quality. I was like, okay, so what if I master this? Second piece, what if I could have it all? What would that need to look like to be physically on fire, spiritually connected, sexually and emotionally and mentally connected to my wife, deeply connected with my children, and still crushing it in money? It's like, is that possible to even do this? And I called it Body Being Balanced in Business, or the Warrior's Way, to have it all. So I launched Warrior in 2012 as just a concept to help some people, maybe make a little money on the side while I was doing this other thing, running a marketing agency.
So this was just a concept that you didn't know was going to grow to the empire in which it has become.
No, I thought it was just something we were going to do as a side thing with this other thing I was doing. Just kind of something to make me feel purpose while I was working we were building marketing and sales funnels and sales systems for other people. I had a partner named Adam Spiel, and we had clients lining up at $50K to be able to collect money. So I was making money again. And Danielle, at the same time, had transitioned. During that transition in Arizona, she had also made the decision to start stockpiling cash to leave me.
It wasn't really to leave you. It was just like, in case things didn't work out.
It was to leave me. but that was when the core game
here, right?
Yeah, that was the core game of when
But I think
NBR
that's
really
when I
took off.
started. No, that's when, because before we had like joint accounts, and I was just like, oh, I'll put my money in here, and it kind of disappeared, right? I had no idea. And it wasn't until I had my own accounts where I started stockpiling cash, and he was still paying the majority of the bills. Like, I paid lifestyle and things like that, but he was still paying the majority of the bills. So I started to like get some money in that account, and I was like, okay. And in seeing my numbers, I started to gain some certainty and some confidence, and I was kind of like, hey, if you want to stay married to me, we're gonna have to put in the work. Like, I'm not like. I wasn't vulnerable anymore. I was very powerful. I was like, I'm in a powerful place, because like, if we want to be together, it's because we're both choosing to do the work and stay together. You know what I mean? So that's really what shifted our relationship, is just like, I was making money and had that confidence and certainty, and he was making money, and like, we're kind of doing our own thing. And now it's like, and then we kind of had this like, where we kind of butt heads a little bit. We're both a little alpha, you know? And
it was complete alpha butting heads.
So then it kind of, I had to get
So that's why I was asking, like, are you both stubborn?
So, well, that's...
Oh, yeah, when she's an alpha and I'm an alpha,
but
it's a
now
complete fucking
we've learned,
headbutt session.
like, how to really balance that. Like, because I very much want to be treated like a woman, right? I know that I'm a powerful woman, but I don't need to be like alpha all the time. Like, I like being submissive to him. And when I'm wife Danielle, like, that's a different role for me, and I love that role. I also love being powerful, and I love being in business, and I know how to do both roles. You know what I mean? So I think a true feminist woman is somebody who understands that, and they're not always in their alpha.
Absolutely. And I think you identified something very important. Is like at work, I mean, we even talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I've been coming here for a couple of weeks now in a row. And I saw you walking in that power suit, that little, I mean, it was still so feminine and gorgeous and beautiful. It was like this little cutout, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, like a little cape suit and everything. Then I went to your house and I was like, dude, your wife, powerhouse. Like she walked into that room and I think that there was like a certain way that you carried yourself that whole day and you felt it, right? So you dominate in the business world of hair. Then you go home and you know how to turn that off and be like,
Mom and wife.
the baker.
Totally.
She
I'm
does.
like, who wants cookies?
Well, cookie time, milk.
does.
And I love that. Looking back into your life now, here we are, success, massive success. It didn't happen overnight. No. And I think that a lot of people see you guys, the Maseratis, the beautiful home, the this, the that. And that's why I was like, hey guys, I want for you to know exactly that not everything is birthed from like overnight success. They're like, oh, you're so successful, you're so this, you're so that. Fast forwarding all of that, the things that people now see, do you ever look back and say, I would have done this a little differently?
Oh, for sure.
What
Yeah,
would that
the
be?
path itself was amazing. Like, tell the truth faster. Like the key that was fucking us up in a marriage and family and life was we were liars. We did not tell. We either were lying through commission, which we were saying things that weren't true, which didn't happen too often. But what we mostly lied about was we just omitted truth. She wouldn't talk and tell me what was going on. I wouldn't talk and tell her what was going on. I was terrified to tell her what I was really feeling and thinking. She was terrified. So the only thing I would have changed in the process is move the line when honesty became the policy of how we operated as people, and that inside that honesty there was permission to be all of you. She's a bitch, and she's fucking brilliant, and I love both. When she goes to her bitch, there's moments I take a stiletto to the forehead. I deserved it. That was an interesting night. A little too much tequila.
Oh, the forehead, not the floor head. Okay, got it. That was something else.
Yeah, not that one. Not a stiletto on that head. But those moments that get like spicy, but like our spiciness now, there's a commitment inside of us.
There's a respect.
This is the piece that was missing. So lying didn't allow for that. When honesty came in, respect was the thing we were missing. It wasn't a love or attraction or desire for each other. It was a respect. And her building her brand gave her respect for me. She'd never been able to appreciate the pressure I was under. Then all of a sudden I'm watching her come home. I was like, oh, you're having a third glass of wine tonight? Must have been a rough day. Everyone used to talk shit about my beer night. And she's like, yeah. I was like, well, yeah, welcome to my fucking world. That's the way I've been in for 10 years. All of a sudden there was this place for her and I where there was a relatability and an understanding, and inside of that came a respect for each other.
And we were able to kind of grow. We like came to this beautiful, harmonious place of like growing back together and kind of like keeping pace with one another, which ultimately like helps. That's like how a relationship survives. If you have one person that's constantly like dragging the other one along, they're only gonna drag them for so long, right? And I feel like Garrett and I both have like that same appetite for life, for business, for everything. And so that's what it's been, and I think we always had, but now we're kind of like, again, like paving the way together.
Beautiful, beautiful share. Guys, this has been absolutely amazing. I think that there's a lot of things that you guys on the other side of the lens probably didn't know about Garrett and Danielle White. Going to the White House, a couple of weeks ago, I was like, this little mansion is beautiful. And as I was walking around their house, I'm like, I see the perfection, the details that you and I talked about, the AC vents, like little things that I was like, the AC vents, the toilet, the this, the that, the coffee maker, which I'm now putting one in my bathroom. I'm like, I feel poor now. I don't have a coffee maker in my bathroom, in my little 3,500 square foot home. So it's like, we've all seen this. We hear your stories. And I think that that's one of the things that I wanted to do was invite you guys into a little bit of the history of success. People see success and they think that success only comes from overnight, whatever. Like this was birth and you're like, all of a sudden you pitch the tent and there is success. Yeah. You guys here, there were tears, there was conflict, there was collision, there were all these different things that they were feeling. And yet they were able to survive. And here you guys are thriving and now sharing parts of your life that actually could have been very painful, shameful.
Yeah.
And unspeakable or unspeakable. Sorry, I make my own words. I'm very creative with that. But this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to share a little bit of what you guys have gone through.
You're a great
A little bit
interviewer.
of the, thank you.
Great.
This is another one of my pastimes. I talk in front of the mirror a lot, you know? Truth. No. Last final question.
Okay.
You are now 84 years old.
No,
You
not
are,
yet.
I mean, no. You are now 84 years old.
Okay.
You're looking back.
I'm 91.
You're 91.
old bastard.
He's still around. He's still kicking.
A lot more
He's still
tattoos.
kicking.
I'm
He's
still
still
around.
kicking.
Just got like a face tattoo.
Whole body shield.
84. Looking back at your life, the biggest accomplishment of your life.
I see myself as building a legacy. Like I see moments in the future where I'm like, it kind of keeps me pushing. And I mean, I'm young, I'm 37, I'll be 38 this month. And for what I've accomplished, I'm very proud of myself, and I know that I'll continue down that path. And I just feel like I will build a legacy and an impact in our industry. And I believe that everything that Garrett's doing with Warrior is going to have a massive, I think both of us have like a massive
This is your
movement.
life right now. You're looking back. You're not looking
I'm
at
not
Garrett's.
looking at his. Well, he's part of my life.
I know. But your biggest accomplishment is now a legacy.
A legacy.
A legacy. You want to be a Vidal Sassoon. You want to be somebody that's going to leave an imprint in our industry and be
Yes.
like being put in
Like
our textbooks and
Yes.
everything. Like, you guys, this is the story of Danielle White. You know, it's like,
Right.
that's who you
I
want.
tell
That's what you
I
want
tell
to
my
do.
mom all the time, I say, I am the next Paul Mitchell. And she's like, I believe it. And I'm like, thank you.
Beautiful.
So I don't know, like that's kind of where I keep pushing to go, and I'm excited to see where the future takes me.
Beautiful. A legacy. Garrett, looking back. 91 now.
91.
Hopefully not in diapers.
So, yeah, hoping on diapers, I'll screw up the surf game.
That's all you think about? Just the surf game.
This is the surf game. The Wake Up Warrior itself has become an imprint of an idea and a belief system, an operating system. It's ultimately what sits at the core of what happens at DKW Styling Academy. It's the X factor that's married up to MBR that makes it so different. That's why the training companies, the systems, it's why it works. People are like, how are you guys dominating in training? I said, because it's Warrior blended with DKW. DKW is a blend of natural beaded rose meets Wake Up Warrior, fact maps, the daily 4, all these core 4, living by the code, all these things. I want that operating system to be something that Warrior itself became a brand that people forgot who I was. Mm-hmm. That it's a global operating system with thousands of faces and tens of millions of people. And that 200 years from now, they're studying when did the operating system of man change? And I say, well, it originated, and the first magazine, or first newspaper I ever called out was in 2017 with the New York Post that said Garrett J. White and Wake Up Warrior were the initiators and the inventors of the industry of masculinity. So in a world of men falling apart, and families falling apart, and couples falling apart, I want to know that that's what I did. Because that legacy, I make that impact. My family is impacted by this, my kids. And the second piece is just knowing that my wife and I did it together. That our worlds collided and became one superpower. That it wasn't just two, and that's a place I feel like we're at right now. Which is like, there's no us, and there's no me and you against each other, which has been that way, honestly. It's been that way for a number of years. Where
Yeah.
it's my brand, her brand,
Right.
and behind the scenes,
Now
it's a
even-
bit of fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
Even in the last year, we're kind of like slowly
it's
letting
like-
each other back into each other's businesses and worlds and that kind of thing.
But now I feel like you guys have both identified your roles very,
Yeah.
very distinctly to where it's
Right.
not gonna bleed into one another. Garrett, don't come into my business because you're
Yeah.
gonna dominate. Danielle, don't come into my business because all my men are gonna end up being gay or whatever. There's gonna be a lot of softness going on or whatever the case may be, right? So both of you literally wanna leave an imprint, a mark, a legacy, a change, a pivotal point that you both are gonna be look back and be like, it was the Whites. Guys, there you have it. It is simple as a conversation to be had. Some little things that I wanted to bring a little bit to light, fruition, all these little things that they always talk about, but we don't always get to see. Garrett, Danielle, thank you very much for being in this amazing studio that we have here in Dana Point and allowing me to tap into your private life and for you guys to share with all of us.
It was awesome.
Thanks, Carlos.
Thank you guys. And America, stay fresh, stay beautiful, but most importantly, be kind to each other. Thank you guys for watching. My name is Carlos Alvarez, and I'll be seeing you guys very, very soon.